Hello team, welcome back to another Line Warcast. This is your map today. A lot of water in general. Two players are Canis lupus in blue spawning on the right hand side of this contested area, and damonsav666. Probably called him Damon. I might even mess up and call him Demon a few times. I apologize. Anyway, Damon starting on the left-hand side, only 4 territories selected. Canis Lupus starting on the right-hand side with only 3 territories selected. You can get a maximum of 6 when you start the game. So both players are opting to save a little bit of money and keep some cash on hand for these first buildings. Can is going for 4 factory, 2 barracks. The barracks were first. And only 1 factory, 1 barracks so far out of Damon, who puts down their second barracks now and goes for some quick industry. So in general, this is going to take some time to pay off for red. You don't get the immediate benefit of the economy from taking the farm so quickly. And with all these buildings super close, Damon might end up in a position where this is really exposed, because this is a ton of production that Canis has been able to put down because of not taking 6 territories. Damon has tons of money, like over 1k right now, and there's the airport that they drop. Neither player sees the other one quite yet. They're about to find out that they are actually right here on the map. Both players will need to expand. Damon could maybe even use this for some commando drops, or maybe a docks on the way to get off this part of the island, but Damon definitely doesn't want to get stuck on this little bit of the map if Canis can actually get up to the north and cap all of this territory, because Canis kind of controls this intersection of where these 3 landmasses kind of meet. So Canis is going for all artillery. So it's 5 factories worth of artillery, which is going to be a huge blob after a little bit of digging, and Canis can't see this defensive line in the mountains. damonsav going for the whole length of this mountain being a defensive line, but there's probably not even going to be that enough infantry to fill this up. So if these artillery pushed with the infantry, the artillery has better range, and so they could start attacking this defensive line and all the infantry in it. Damon's going to go for a 3rd factory, potentially pushing out artillery. I mean, that's the way to counter all of this artillery, is just to have enough of your own. And helicopters out of damonsav. There's the first gas super close to the water. If Canis goes for a dock and getting boats really close, that gas could potentially get sniped. But I guess that's the same for this gas over here, because I think boats along this coast could attack this gas. They're close enough. Probably cruisers being the thing that could actually attack. And red has 294 income, blue has 284, so both players super low on income. There's not a lot of barracks, and there's not a lot of capping necessarily going on. Like, there's no barracks sending units up to the top. There's only this back capping, which is good. And for red, once all of this territory is capped, it's gonna the income's gonna run out pretty quick. So both players have spent all their money now. And I'm interested to see what the plan from Canis is on these blue artillery pieces, because it is quite a lot. And if all these artillery just started pushing, in hindsight, they would have done a lot of damage. Now that there's 3 factories started up, red's going to be able to defend a little bit more and have the units to take this. Really, besides this 1 capping spot, this is a very concentrated push from blue. So let's see how it goes. One of the possibilities here is that blue runs into the mountain and red gets great trades because it's their mountain, so that they don't have as much of a speed bonus or speed penalty, pardon me. And that could cause blue to take bad trades, but this is a lot of artillery. There's not quite enough money for blue to continue producing out of these factories, which is unfortunate. 5 factories is quite a lot to go off of, with only 3 territories starting out with, but these units are doing a great job to continue capping. Red's digging into the mountain range, which, as discussed, could be a huge bonus, like using the geography of the map to get a better trade. The units that are digging in right on top of being attacked, those ones aren't going to get great trades. There's a little bit of a fatigue penalty that units take when they dig in, so they're not actually at their best until they've got fully dug in and rested for a while. So Canis is just going to push right through the center here. The helicopters that Red is building could come in big, because none of these units can really shoot up. There's not enough infantry to be able to attack helicopters. Artillery, although they do shoot at helicopters technically, they do such little damage. This artillery piece is going on a mission of its own. Canis is starting to focus down this farm, which may or may not be the call, because as these infantry focus the farm, they're not going to attack anything on their path, really. 2 helicopters showing up. And they're just going to have a field day because there's no SAMs here quite yet to be able to stop them. And is Blue starting to make SAMs? Not quite yet. This artillery piece is going to chip away at that barracks that might even be able to kill it if it's left there long enough. And the farm is important, but Canis, when all of these units are targeting the farm, they won't even stop to attack, so they're going to try to... Like, they're only going to attack things in their direct line to this building. So all this artillery which could be deployed is now trying to move towards the industry, so it's a little bit tough. These artillery aren't really trading all that effectively. And the helicopters are going to continue to just take free shots at all this artillery. Still no SAMs on the way quite yet for Blue, who does take out the farm. And Blue's at 332 economy and Red's at 332 economy, so both players are even. It's really these helicopters which are doing a great job against this artillery. Damon could even potentially push here. Take all these units out of this defensive line and just start pushing, because it is a ton of artillery that is sitting in this defensive line that would easily be able to overwhelm all of the artillery for Blue that's starting to reinforce. The helicopters are super clutch, and this is what Canis needs to start doing, which is capping to the north, and potentially building some SAMs to deal with these helicopters. It's tough because Blue is a little strapped for cash now, so it's not like they can just easily build SAMs. Here's the first one. And capping all of this will also be important in the south for Blue. Canis is slowly making their way through the mountains here. Damon, on the other hand, is going for this push, which I think is the right call. 3 helicopters and potentially a 4th one on the way. It is a 4th helicopter on the way. That's plenty enough airplanes to deal with this many artillery in the mountains. The only thing that's left is Red needs to take these infantry out of this defensive line to start pushing with it. Both players still in the red at sub 400 income. I think damonsav is pretty much... damonsav, what I said I was going to say demon once, is almost done capping all the stuff to the left of their base, which is all the land they can get, and then after, everything has to go forward, or they have to get off this part of the landmass with boats or planes, as mentioned before. So these infantry are now derping out because they are in this defensive line, but because the artillery needs to move through it, the units have to, like, get out of the defensive line, do a little dance, and then get back into it once their artillery is past them. So here's this big push. And I think one of the things that came down to is there weren't enough SAMs for Blue quick enough. And the eco was kind of tough to sustain 5 factories. 4 may have been enough. And then getting caught up in the mountains. Mountains are such powerful geographic features on a land or line war map. It's kind of it's very deceiving, really, how units trade in mountains, especially when they're attacking. So income wise, 368 for Canis Lupus, 356 for damonsav, so it is very close. These helicopters are still going to do great until there's enough SAMs out. 1 SAM is here. If these 4 helicopters were to get lucky and attack this SAM, which they are going to do, There's no more SAMs on the way, so for this whole time, these helicopters are just going to be able to get free hits on all his defensive units, and really Damon should just really be looking to push, I think, at this point in the game. Red is about to run out of all the eco to cap. Here they either need to get off the landmass or they need to start pushing. Because as time goes on, if Canis keeps securing all of this territory on the far east of the map, Blue should get an economic lead. So here come the helicopters. They're going to start attacking a building. They're going to be able to take out this factory. And attacking the building isn't like the worst thing. Red could really consider just trying to push here. With the number of artillery pieces they have and all the infantry and sending everything else to the front, if these helicopters just hovered over this defensive line and all the artillery started attacking it, they'd probably be able to break through and just end the game right now. Regardless, killing a factory is always great. It'll then be 4 factories against 3 factories production-wise. Blue's still in the lead slightly. Factory goes down. And I assume, yeah, this was another helicopter move. So one thing that could happen here is if all these helicopters just fly in one by one, the infantry may, like the infantry with the help of a SAM or something, might be able to snipe all these helicopters, and that's like the big strategic, not strategic, but like the big benefit and advantage is the word that I'm trying to use. Advantage that Red has right now is these helicopters. And by targeting this building, they're not going to be able to attack this one SAM. Like really, if all these helicopters just fought at once and tried to attack the SAM, they'd be able to get rid of all the anti-air and then get back to a position where the helicopters are king, essentially. I mean, there's 5 helicopters, which is quite a few. I don't even know how these helicopters went back to base. I would have expected them to land somewhere in Red's territory. So infantry are going up into a defensive line in front of the artillery, which does make sense. Red's artillery is going to be able to attack Blue's infantry in the entrenched positions, but it's going to buy time. In general, I think the longer this goes, the better it is for Blue, who is... Canis Lupus is still behind on eco, but there's 2 pretty big capping crews that are starting to get economy, and that's going to be the difference. The longer that Blue can hold this up. If Red's not expanding, which there's no dock, it does seem like this is the time that Red needs to go for it, since over time the economy will get worse. All these infantry in the defensive line, it's kind of tough for Red because now there's no infantry close to be able to body block and stop all these Blue infantry for jumping on the artillery pieces. With the help of the helicopters maybe, but the helicopters are likely going to fly right at the SAMs because they're going to, yes, aggro to the SAMs. And now it's 3 SAMs against 2 helicopters. And now it's 2 SAMs versus 2 helicopters. It's still good for the SAMs. They're going to take out another one of these helicopters after one more volley of SAMs go out. And there it is. Now we have, again, two SAMs versus 1 helicopter. So this is kind of tough for Red, unfortunately. And now, since it's just artillery attacking entrenched artillery in relatively similar numbers, not all of Red's artillery is even attacking here, unfortunately. This is just a great trade for Blue, who, as discussed, is probably going to be ahead in economy at this point. damonsav making 450, Canis at 440. So my apologies. Not really ahead quite yet. But there's nothing that Red is capping. This was a wonderful trade for Blue. Another factory for damonsav. But both players are pretty low on money when it really comes down to it. 450 for Red, and now 452 for Canis, but Canis is going to continue capping. Right, so there's one territory that blue is taking. There's a second one up here, including some industry. I don't know why these infantry have just stopped moving, unfortunately. That happens to me sometimes when I play. But besides these, what is it, like 6 territories? 7? 8 maybe? Red's out of capping spots, and blue has all of it. Without the helicopter advantage, there's no way that Damon can attack here. It's just so many artillery. There's a natural pause because both players have thrown away full armies. Not thrown away, but they've lost them in exchanges. Is the nice way to put it, right? So 4 factories for Damon, and there's still 4 factories for Canis. But Canis is gonna have the money to sustain this. One flower of Sam's is probably enough to deal with it, especially since blue knows they've reset all the airport numbers. And I think at this point the game just goes until Canis has enough to push. Because red is unfortunately not going to get off this landmass. I mean, they can't really at this point either. It's hard because you're not going to really put down a dock. There's not enough money to do it. Commando dropping's kind of the only play. A dock could work, but red's got to start going now to expand potentially. Because what is the difference? damonsav at 474 and Canis is at 520, so blue's ahead by about 50 now. There's 2 more industry there's 1 more industry in the north that's gone down for blue, so red has 1 farm and blue has 2 farms. And over time, that will add to blue's economic lead. This would be a wonderful spot to send a rocket if red had the economy to do so, but there's no real way that would be affordable given the situation. I wonder if there's strikers out of the airport, so it's still helicopters. Enough strikers could deal with all these SAMs. If like a whole airport and an airstrip was built up. But I don't know if red has that sort of time. And here comes the push, but this is not gonna go well for red. Blue's artillery, by being in the entrenched position, they have a range bonus. So they're gonna be able to shoot red's artillery before red is even in position. The kind of only good thing for red is that blue's infantry is moving through this spot in the defensive line, which made 1 artillery piece move. This is a very bold factory from red, who, if this is it, should all these infantry that are defending likely need to be with this army. Like, in theory, taking this town isn't a bad play from red because there's no more economy that they're going to cap on land. So inevitably at some point they would have to take this industry. Blue's already got a 3rd farm going in the north, nearly has the entire south, that little peninsula or whatever. And this is still very good trades for blue. 4 helicopters, pardon me, for red. Which the positioning of the SAMs is perfect because the helicopters won't be able to. I mean, they might be able to like attack some of these artillery pieces if a dot was made right here for the helicopters. And after this much thing out, I think that blue could just push. Because numbers-wise, it's good for blue artillery numbers. Even if blue pushed up to this town and just sniped that, because I think blue can see this. Yeah, blue can definitely see this town. Still a healthy SAM count. You can see the bank of blue expanding. There's 614 economy for blue and 486 for red. Canis puts down an airport. I think that's a good tech choice at this point. Building up strikers or helicopters even. Over time, getting a whole swarm of planes is going to be huge because red's going to need to continue building artillery to match all of this artillery of blue. So they're not going to be able to start mixing in SAMs as easily. And blue is done making their SAMs. I mean, there's still more SAMs being produced, but that's not by necessity. As long as there's one dot, I think there's enough land here that they can cover it. Which is a huge bonus, right? Because blue is only going to make artillery just like act like pushing power. They don't have to focus on SAMs anymore. These units are rounding the top. And unfortunately for damonsav, this is gonna start rolling away. I mean, I guess this town's up. If somehow red could actually defend this... I don't know, it's still kind of tough. There's a lot of economy that blue is going to be able to cap. Just over time, I think blue's going to be ahead here. And this is currently still not like an ideal trade for red to be taken against the Duggan artillery pieces. We can see what the unit is, so it's going to be strikers out of the airport. I like that. The range of blue's airport is such that the blue line is where the strikers can go, so they're going to be able to control this entire mountain range, which will be huge for when the push inevitably does happen. Another factory in the mountains for red. $662 income for blue, 531 for red. Who's also very low on money. Five helicopters at home. A barracks in the north would be really great, I think, for blue to be able to cap even quicker this entire peninsula. There's a town going down. This town has a trade route, or pardon me, a port, the dock. Ports are one of the best eco units you can build for how long they take and how much money they give. So that will be a huge bonus for blue. So here come the helicopters. They're going to run into enough SAMs to deal with this. 5 helicopters aren't going to do well against 5 SAMs. It's actually 6 SAMs. There's just one stuck behind a building. The only good thing is for the first little bit, the helicopters weren't going close enough to trigger their machine guns out of the SAMs. Like when the machine guns actually, or the SAMs make that firecracker noise, that's the thing that does the most DPS. Red's gonna push again. It's a tough position for red to be in because there's really no other option but to push because they're boxed in entirely. So I can understand why this happens, but just numbers-wise, it's a very tough spot. Let's see the economy. 531 for red, almost 700 now for blue. I mean, this one helicopter is doing a great job. Any artillery pieces that can take out helps, but if it does get hit by these SAMs enough, it's definitely not worth it, unfortunately. The range of the SAMs is perfect, and the position is very good. Tanks for blue, which is a great play as long as there's gas. I mean, Canis has the gas here. And tanks would be great to just roll through this field, trade well against their artillery. They could even go around the bottom of the mountain so they don't have to go through the mountain and take such a speed penalty. This is all the gas. The one gas and the depot. And here come 2 strikers. And 2 strikers, there's no SAMs. So they're gonna help out quite well here. And again, numbers-wise, if Canis sees this and sees everything that was in the mountain and knew what was in the mountain, very safely could push. And just like if they get into the mountain and realize it's a bad trade or it's not what it is, just to retreat. Because blue has not seen red yet, and that's a very good sign. I mean, if you're blue's infantry capping the north and there's still no red territories that you're encountering, that's a huge indication that economically blue is ahead. The entire south has been capped now beside these two bottom right territories. And this defensive line definitely like moved up, right? Maybe I'm just imagining things. But very slowly these units are getting closer to the town. Here's this dock from damonsav, which is definitely the play. At this point it'll be tough with a 200 income deficit for red to battle back from, and a huge army deficit really, given the number of artillery pieces in these entrenched positions. First SAMs for damonsav, that's a good play. The reaction time is nice. Like these SAMs got out pretty quick when the plane showed up. And the key there is that by going SAMs so quickly, it hopefully as red, blue isn't able to actually get like, you know, 8 strikers or 10 strikers and then be able to super control the skies. Because I mean, if there's now 2 SAMs the next time these planes come home, that's even better. Maybe even a 3rd. This has been super attrition for red. That's still unfortunately not the trades it take. Here comes the dock with the transport boat. That's big. And I like how it's just infantry that are going down to the bottom here to go across. There's no real point in setting artillery when there's this many artillery for blue that need to be dealt with. Four strikers now for blue. Potentially could make a airstrip next. You can look at the income like per minute. So Canis is making 241 a minute at 836 total income, whereas damonsav is making 30 a minute at 530 income. Dock and barracks for Canis. I wonder if this is a transport boat potentially to run behind this defensive line, if you like landing right here or something. We'll see what the play is. This first boat is up. This definitely needs to get across as soon as possible. And damonsav stopped making airplanes, which I actually kind of like to save the money. The helicopters haven't been able to do too much. I mean, if anything, it likely but like strikers would be an easier bet here. Now that there's like a bunch of SAMs out on the map. See, because 4 strikers on 3 SAMs are gonna do a little bit better than 4 helicopters on 3 SAMs, because these things now fly home. They don't just hover above the target. The pros and cons of SAMs. There's 5 tanks still for blue. That could definitely be rolling right now and going around the bottom. Love this for red, getting off the landmass. Another town. Here's this port for Canis, who will likely be almost at 900 income. A full 300 in front of red, who is landing here. There's 7 infantry at the bottom for blue. So red's gonna need to at least get a second boat across to take a fair fight here. And if blue's on top of it, they could crush this right now, but it'll be tough to see. Because this push is happening. 5 tanks rolling to attack the town. 860 income for blue. 530 for red. Blue could potentially just attack with these tanks. I mean, they're gonna indirectly attack this anyway because they're trying to get to this town. But if the tank just stopped here and cleared all this artillery, that would also be great. And the SAMs are on the outside of the mountain's protection, so if the tanks could even just jump on the SAMs, that would be a great secondary target after this town, which the tanks will certainly get. The defense lines are abandoned. And you gotta assume that blue is gonna go for a push now. And that's exactly what's happening. There goes the town. This landing went well, but blue's on top of it. With 4 extra infantry, maybe if these infantry immediately ran over to try to attack. It's a tough landing spot though. All the SAMs are going down. There's the last one. And now this push with the help of some planes, which I guess over time blue lost most of the planes because there's only one left. So here come these mountains through the mountains through the tanks. The tanks through the mountains. Which is kind of nice, but if the tanks were even just to go along the bottom of this mountain range, they'd go so much quicker. And then they'd be able to get on top of all this production. And what also happens is when the tanks are on top of the production here, all of these units for red have to stay at home to defend the tanks, and so the push for blue becomes stronger. Because the numbers are so much in their favor. Some boats and commandos up by the dock. And yeah, red takes this. That's great. We could hear that Canis went for another barracks somewhere, maybe even in the bottom. I like this barracks here to help reinforce this now that this whole thing is under siege. This cruiser would be pretty... I mean, if it... I don't think it can hit this barracks. It might be able to. 2 strikers are on top of it. And 2 strikers, I think, take out a cruiser. We can watch, though. The transport boat is still sending infantry down to the south for red, which is a great play from an economic point of view. Unfortunately, it's just a little bit late. There's so many artillery. Like, the standing army for blue is just enormous right now. damonsav has 1 helicopter, 2 strikers for blue. Yeah, I mean, this cruiser hitting a factory could be really cool. With 2 cruisers out, I think like the gas might start getting a little bit wild for red, because between 2 cruisers and some helicopters, that is a lot of gas usage. Besides a rocket, there's nothing that's going to be able to clear out this many artillery at this point. And let's see where Canis is going. Yeah, so it's a backdoor drop with these units in the transport boat, which will most certainly seal the game. Unfortunately for Damon, these are on attack move, which might be intentional, but the capping would be super great because it also takes income away from blue. Tank against a cruiser with the help of 2 strikers. But interesting game. Mountains are very cool. The dynamic of mountains in line more and forests in line more and the different bonuses that they give, depending on if you control them or not. It keeps the game fresh because of those randomly generated maps. And here we can really see from the beginning of the game the power of a defensive line and defending in general in mountains. So this is about a bajillion artillery pieces that are making their way into this forest. with all of Red's production. The second cruiser might be able to find the factory. I could have stopped the sentence, but I'm not going to. These two barracks now are huge for blue because they're clearing out that infantry. And we can check the economy once more. 440 for red and 970 for blue. Who has landed in the back. And it's going to this gas. I mean, this cruiser could go attack this refinery, not that it's super pressing. Now blue's putting down another airport. One of the decent things about those cruiser plays, even though it's still probably like not an ideal trade, is that at least the strikers weren't able to be up here closer to the front this entire time. I still like love this transport boat. If that happened a little bit earlier, this game might look a lot different. But well played from both. The defensive lines. The patience. And thank you to Canis for posting this in the match replays channel in the Discord. Check out the Discord if you want to learn more about the game, chat to others, ask questions, whatever it is. People are there to chat and help. I hope you have a great night, day, evening, whatever it is. GG. Enjoy, we'll see you around. Peace.